Good evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Kasani Balachandra.
Good evening, I'm Stefan Dialwis. Let's take a look at the main headlines for tonight.
Former parliamentarian Rashad Batudin appears before the Police Investigation Division of the Presidential Commission probing the Easter Sunday attacks. Questioning goes on for over 6.5 hours. The President conducts an observation visit of the Northern Central Expressway to inquire into complaints. The European Union commends measures taken to rebuild the Sri Lankan economy. A loan under a concessionary interest rate granted for suppliers who have not received their due payments from the good governance regime. The Attorney General alleges that the prisons have become a playground for criminals. India's Rajya Sabha by-election underway amidst the corona threat.
Moving on to stories in more detail. Chinese President Xi Jinping, in a letter wishing President Gotabaya Rajapaksa for his birthday, which falls tomorrow, notes that Sri Lanka and China were successful in detecting COVID-19 positive cases due to the dedication of the security and intelligence units of both countries. Acting Ambassador for China, Hu Wei, met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. He handed over a letter from Chinese President Xi Jinping wishing President Gotabaya Rajapaksa for his upcoming birthday. The Chinese delegation also conveyed the Chinese president's deep appreciation of Sri Lanka's successful efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The Chinese government has sent a consignment of medical supplies to help Sri Lanka's continuous fight against the virus. These supplies are already with the Health Ministry. The acting ambassador handed over the list of supplies to President Rajapaksa. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa thanked his Chinese counterpart and the people and companies of China for their unstinted support during the past difficult weeks as Sri Lanka battled with the pandemic. The Chinese delegation noted that both Sri Lanka and China followed similar tracking systems to identify COVID-19 patients. The two countries have shown immense cooperation in supporting each other during the global pandemic. Sri Lanka gifted to China consignment of the finest black teas as they are considered to have healing properties. This was in early February this year when China was fighting its worst battle against the coronavirus. Furthermore, Pirit was chanted throughout the island invoking blessings on those affected by the virus in China. The latest situation in Beijing was also appraised by the delegation. A range of other topics were also discussed. The main focus was on tea auctions and how best to promote Sri Lankan tea, renowned as the world's best in China. The talks included Chinese investments in Sri Lanka and improving financial cooperation between these two countries. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa met with the EU ambassadors at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. The discussion centered on rebuilding the economy after the COVID-19 crisis. The President explained the steps taken by the country to face the COVID-19 crisis. The President explained the steps taken by the public health inspectors with the support of the police and security forces to not only identify infected persons but also the associates of infected persons and have them quarantined. The President noted the next concern before the country is reviving the economy, as the current growth rate is very low and national debt is high. The President observed that to control this dire situation, certain controls and restrictions had to be imposed on imports. However, this does not mean that Sri Lanka will be a closed economy. At the same time, President Rajapaksa expressed his interest in developing domestic industries. The President noted that most food items can be produced locally. Therefore, he stressed on the need for Sri Lanka to modernize this sector. The President noted that presently around 40% of agricultural produce gets wasted due to the lack of proper storage facilities. He underscored that there is a need to increase facilities. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa stated that given the situation, Sri Lanka would benefit from a debt moratorium. He pointed out that Sri Lanka needs new investments. The EU delegation's attention was also directed to projects such as renewable energy by the use of solar and wind power. The President also expressed his interest in focusing on an IT-based education system so that the youth are more exposed to new technologies.
Former Minister Rishad Badiuddin appeared before the Police Investigation Division of the Presidential Commission probing into the Easter Sunday attacks today. Our correspondent states that the former minister was questioned for around 6.5 hours. Former Minister Rishad Badiuddin, who arrived at the Commission at 10:15 a.m., left for afternoon prayers and returned at around 2 p.m. Since then, statements were recorded from the former minister until around 6:30 p.m. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today instructed the contractors of the Northern Central Expressway to take steps to speedily west the expressway with the public. These instructions were given when the Premier visited the expressway today to inquire into construction work of the second stage of the project, as complaints had been received that construction work is not taking place properly. The expressway concept was launched when Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president of the country. The first expressway constructed in the country was the Colombo-Galle Expressway, which was extended to Mathura. The Colombo-Katnaik Expressway was also constructed to make transportation efficient. The Southern Expressway, which was extended to Mathura, was later extended to Hambantota. The Central, Northern and Ratnapur Expressways are also part of the plans, out of which half of the construction work of the Central Expressway is complete. Construction work of the Northern Central Expressway, which commenced in January 2017, was due to reach completion in July 2019. However, a delay occurred, and according to Project Director KHMA Kehel Allah, one reason for the delay was contracts being awarded without acquiring land properly. A lengthy explanation was provided to the Premier on the current situation of the expressway. The project director pointed out that contracts had been awarded to local construction companies under 4 packages for an agreed contract period of 30 months for the construction of the second stage of the Central Expressway, which includes 4 lanes and 6 interchanges. However, the progress of certain companies is not satisfactory. The Meerigama-Kurunegala stretch comes under the second stage of the Central Expressway. The Premier, during the observation visit, also inspected the operations centre of the Meerigama-Rilavuluva stretch, at which it was revealed that the construction work has not taken place within the designated time period. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa instructed the respective contractors to speed up construction work of the Rilavuluva-Rangalepula stretch. The project director stated that although certain contractors are completing their construction work, certain contractors are functioning at a slow pace, which has resulted in the delay to open the second phase of the Central Expressway. Speaking to the media after the observation visit, the Premier stated that the Central Expressway will be completed speedily and wested with the public. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa observed that the work of certain companies is poor and the majority of the work has been completed by the good companies, while certain companies have closed down as the former government has made them bankrupt. The Premier stated that once funds are allocated, work will commence. Premier Rajapaksa also stated that it is he who placed the foundation stone and initiated these projects. However, they were launched under the previous regime. Minister of Roadways Johnston Fernando and former parliamentarian Shanta Bandara joined in the observation.
The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to grant a loan at a concessionary interest rate for suppliers and contractors who have not received their due payments for services supplied during the good governance regime. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena expressed his views on this decision at a special media briefing held at the Department of Government Information today. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that in the year 2019, the former good governance regime had obtained various supply services and awarded various contracts, resulting in over 240 billion rupees due in payments. Minister Gunawardena in a cabinet paper states that the high economic growth rate had declined by 2019 when the government was handed over. He says that millions of funds could not be settled due to the former government's inefficient management. The minister stated that now, as a large economic crisis situation is being faced since these contractors and suppliers are helpless, the President has submitted a cabinet paper for these bills to be held as securities and until the government pays these dues for a loan to be provided under a concessionary interest rate. Minister Gunawardena stated that after a budget is passed, these bills will be settled. He explained that a cabinet paper has been put forward to enable these bills to be placed as a guarantee upon approval from the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and for a loan to be obtained from a commercial bank.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa stated that measures will be taken to provide government assistance to improve the Pirivan and Dhamma school education. The president highlighted the importance of accessibility for Pirivan students to learn English language and information technology in addition to other subjects in their curricula. President made these comments yesterday during the third meeting with the Buddhist Advisory Council, which is scheduled to be held in the third week of every month. Anunayaka of the Malvatta chapter, Most Venerable Nyangoda Vijayasirithero, stated that the instructions of the Buddhist Advisory Council is being executed successfully, and at the same time the prelate praised the decision to appoint 2 task forces to establish a secure nation, law-abiding and disciplined society, and for the preservation of ancient archaeological sites. Venerable Vijayasirithero said that the Mahasangha is confident that the 2 task forces would fulfill their objectives effectively. The prelate stated that the positive feedback the president received from the society for his endeavour in leading the entire state operations is an honour to the Buddhist Advisory Council as well. The Buddhist Council highlighted the prevailing issues pertaining to Pirivan and Dhamma school education to the president and officials in the education sector. Venerable Nyangoda Thero emphasized the amendments should be made in the syllabus and curricula of Pirivan education. The necessity of adding information technology to the syllabus of the Pirivan education in addition to Sinhala Pali, Sanskrit, Tamil and English languages was discussed in depth. The Mahasangha also pointed out the requirement of proper training of Dhamma school teachers and promoting young students to follow Dhamma education more and more. Venerable Vijayasirithero went on to note that it is essential to ban tuition classes on Poya days and from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sundays in order to guide the younger generations towards a more religious setting to create a lawful and disciplined society ultimately. In addition, the Thero highlighted the young children's tendency towards drugs and other unethical activities and recommended that conducting tuition classes should be stopped after 5 p.m. for children to have the opportunity to spend more time with their parents. During the meeting, the importance of establishing a presidential task force on Pirivan activities was also discussed. The Mahasangha pointed out that graduate bhikkhus, laymen who had passed Dharmacharya should be recruited to teach Buddhism. Establishment of a post of Dharmacharya Director for Pirivan educational institutions, increase the grant for Pirivan scholarships, inclusion of educational materials which will motivate students to acquire Dharma knowledge while excluding the deep theoretical contents of Buddhist culture, Pali and Abhidharma in the Dhamma school textbooks for upper class students were discussed in detail.
Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira states that prisons have become the training school and the playground for certain criminals. He emphasizes that the time is right to change this situation as a matter of urgency. The Attorney General made these observations engaging in an observation visit of the Colombo Remand Prison. This is the first occasion in which an Attorney General has conducted an observational visit of this prison. Additional Senior Solicitor General Sarat Jaimana and Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Papiris also joined in the visit. The Attorney General addressed the superintendents of all prisons subsequent to the visit. Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira noted that serious crimes in Sri Lanka are organised from within the prison walls, as the underworld has found itself inside the prisons, and they now operate from within and outside the prisons. The Attorney General observed that as there are corrupt officials in this prison system, they need to be rooted out in order to create an tainted justice system. He stated that one look at the present state of the prison system shows that it has become a playground for criminals and a training program to produce violent criminals to commit next-level crimes in the country. He also pointed out that prisoners are addicted to substance abuse and trafficking in narcotic substances. The Attorney General further stated that an unethical tradition of certain prison officers protecting prisoners and of prisoners returning the favour continues to be followed inside prisons, and this needs to be stopped. Terming the existing prison system as a failure, Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira said that prison guards officials and public officers are accountable to the people and therefore should ensure that they retire from service with no regrets. The Attorney General emphasizes that prisons are a key part of the justice system, and if this important pillar is not functioning properly, it affects the entire system in a negative manner. The Attorney General concluded that such an eroding of the justice system is a threat to law and order, public security as well as national security.
Taking a look at some stories from overseas, China has released genome sequencing data for the coronavirus responsible for a recent outbreak in Beijing, with officials saying today it identified a European strain based on preliminary studies.
China has released genome sequencing data for the coronavirus responsible for a recent outbreak in Beijing, with officials identifying a European strain based on preliminary studies. China said it has submitted the data to the World Health Organization. Details published on China's National Microbiology Data Center website revealed the Beijing genome data was based on 3 samples, 2 human and 1 environmental, collected on June 11, the same day the Chinese capital reported its first new local COVID-19 infection in months. Since then, Beijing has reported a total of 183 cases, linked to the major wholesale food centre of Jinfadi in the city's southwest. Wu Zunyu, the chief epidemiology expert for the Chinese Centre of Disease Control, told state media this week the Beijing strain was similar to Europe's, although not necessarily directly transmitted from European countries. Wu did not elaborate on those comments made before the genome data release. The market has since closed, and food wholesalers and retail stores in Beijing have stepped up testing on products, including meat and seafood.
The British government will switch to Apple and Google technology for its Test and Trace app, ditching its current system in a U-turn for the Trouble programme. The BBC reported yesterday the UK will now opt for a decentralised model.
A U-turn for the British government over its stalling Test and Trace app. The decision was taken on Thursday to switch to Apple and Google technology to get the troubled programme officially up and running.
Prime Minister!
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson previously stated that the UK app would be, quote, world-beating, but the original centralised model has been beset with problems. And the nationwide rollout has now been pushed back until the end of the year. UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock explained the thinking behind the change.
We are working on it, is the answer. We're not going to put a date on it, I'm afraid, because I'm absolutely determined that whilst this technology can help, it's got to be working effectively. And the central point of Test and Trace is actually the fact that when you are identified as at risk, you then isolate. And asking people to isolate for 2 weeks is a big thing. And so I would not recommend an app unless I'm confident in it.
Ministers have already had to admit to technical issues with the app, which is being tested on the Isle of Wight, which meant that it was not ready for use when England had hoped to launch the Test and Trace system at the end of last month. Apple and Google have now been in talks with Britain about a change in technology to a decentralised model, which would give users more privacy protection but less insight of potential outbreaks. The firms have barred authorities from using their software to collect GPS location data, or even to require users to enter personal data. Britain's adoption of this decentralised approach would be in line with a growing number of European countries, including Italy, Switzerland, Germany and Austria.
California yesterday ordered residents to wear masks at nearly all times outside their homes. The new mandate is one of the broadest of any U.S. state.
California on Thursday ordered locals to wear masks at nearly all times outside the home. The new mandate is one of the broadest of any U.S. state. Exceptions will be made for people eating in restaurants or exercising outdoors, so long as they maintain 6 feet of physical distance. According to officials, state or local authorities would be able to charge Californians who don't wear a mask with a misdemeanor. Governor Gavin Newsom said the strict new rule was necessary because, quote, we are seeing too many people with faces uncovered, putting at risk the real progress we have made. However, Newsom did not say how the state planned to enforce the order, which even recommends masks for people driving alone in their cars. But most U.S. states have less strict mask guidelines, and some have none, including Montana and South Carolina. But California is leading the way in implementing more stringent measures as cities across the country face a resurgence of the global health crisis amid the relaxation of stay-at-home restrictions.
Facebook said yesterday it took down posts and ads run by the re-election campaign of US President Donald Trump for violating its policy against organized hate.
That represent hateful organizations or hateful ideologies unless they're put up with context or condemnation.
Facebook on Thursday removed dozens of controversial Trump campaign ads that it says violated its organized hate policy. The ads showed a red inverted triangle, a symbol the Nazis used to identify political prisoners, with text asking Facebook users to sign a petition against Antifa, a loosely organized anti-fascist movement. President Trump and Attorney General William Barr have repeatedly singled out Antifa as a major instigator of recent unrest during nationwide anti-racism protests, with little evidence. Critics quickly called out the ad as anti-Semitic and highly offensive. Appearing remotely before U.S. lawmakers on Thursday, Facebook's head of security policy, Nathaniel Gleischer, said the deletion of such ads is consistent with their policy to remove the symbol, either automatically or manually when flagged by users.
You obviously want to be careful to allow someone to put up a symbol to condemn it or to discuss it, but in a situation where we don't see either of those, we don't allow it on the platform and we remove it. That's what we saw in this case with this ad, and anywhere that symbol is used, we would take the same actions.
A spokesman for the Trump campaign said in an email that the inverted red triangle is a symbol used by Antifa. The Anti-Defamation League, a Jewish NGO, said that while there have been some Antifa who have used the red triangle, it was not a commonly used symbol by the group. Facebook has previously removed Trump campaign ads, including ones that violated the company's policy against misinformation.
Testifying before the Presidential Commission on Political Victimization, retired Additional Customs Director General Tharaka Seniviratne stated today that officers of the Financial Crimes Investigation Division continuously pressurized him to state that gold was provided for the Sandhiru sale, which is being constructed in Anuradhapura, upon the word of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. However, retired Additional Customs Director General Tharaka Seniviratne stated before the Commission that even though he was influenced, he did not make such a statement. He further stated that 2 officers of the FCID arrived at the Badula hospital in 2019 to arrest him whilst he was undergoing treatment at the hospital. The witness revealed before the Commission that the officers influenced him to state that he admits that gold was given for the Sandhiru sale upon verbal instructions from Gotabaya Rajapaksa. At this point, Chairman of the Presidential Commission, retired Supreme Court Judge Upaliya Bairatna, queried as to who the 2 FCID officers were. In response, the witness stated that he was questioned by 2 officers by the names of Premaratna and Fernando. The witness further stated that the FCID duo had with them a list of 21 questions and they recorded his responses to all the questions. The witness stated that in the pre-prepared questionnaire, one question was, it was upon the word of Gotabaya Rajapaksa that the gold was provided. The witness also stated that the investigating officers said that the list of 21 questions had been prepared by the Attorney General's department. The witness further stated that he understood that an attempt was being made to entangle former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa in a lawsuit by some way or another, and also stated that as of then, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa's name had been proposed to contest the presidential election. The letter of the Navy stating that 8 kilos of gold are needed to mold the Buddha statue, which is to be deposited in the Sandhiru Saya, was also produced before the Commission and was listed as a document of the Commission.
The Director General of the Department of Government Information vehemently rejects the statement voiced by former parliamentarian Ajit P. Pereira yesterday, alleging that a major threat prevails in having the issuance of media identification passes being controlled by the Ministry of Defence, when the task comes under the Ministry of Mass Media. Former parliamentarian Ajit P. Pereira noted that there is a ministry for the subject of mass media and that ministry has a secretary and a department. The former parliamentarian alleges that for the first time the task of issuing this identity card has been brought under the control of Defence Ministry, and this is a major threat and inconvenience. Director General of the Department of Government Information Nalaka Kaluvava with responsibility said that the statement is false, as neither the Defence Ministry nor the Statement Intelligence has been vested with the power to issue media IDs, as the authority lies with the Ministry of Mass Media. He further stated that as the Director General of the Department of Government Information, he can clearly state that no discussion or proposal has taken place on handing over the issuance of media identity cards or its monitoring to the Defence Ministry.
Several professional organizations of the tourism sector have joined together to uplift the sector, which has suffered a setback due to the corona outbreak. These organizations hope to strengthen the tourism sector under the theme One Industry, One Voice. A special discussion was held yesterday with many professional organizations in the tourism sector, jointly with the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. The discussion also focused on providing the opportunity for young tour operators to put forward concepts. Former parliamentarian Nama Rajapaksa was the chief guest at yesterday's ceremony, whilst Dr. Palitha Kohana was the guest of honor. The Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators has preparations to introduce new programs to mitigate the damage caused to corals, wildlife and parks in the endeavor to uplift the local tourism industry.
Restructure our tourism industry. We have to rethink and reach new markets. We have to offer something different, which we have, and I'm glad that the Saito youth have taken up that role. Looking at the global numbers, if we have a $400 billion market, which with around 370 million travelers, with the global pandemic, if the global travel patterns are changing, and they're looking at more longer stays, and if it is the youth who is mostly traveling, according to study research done by the global research agencies, I believe in most industries we say youth is the future. That is a belief in any organization. But when it comes to travel, tourism, I believe youth is not only the future, it's the present and the future.
The government had planned to increase the income from the industry to $5 billion. Unfortunately and unexpectedly, COVID-19 intervened. So we may not get there immediately, but that still remains our goal. Before COVID-19 hit Sri Lanka, over 300,000 were employed by this industry. There were many more thousands who were indirectly employed. So it's a very, very important industry for the economy of this country and for the future of this country. We had the civil unrest of the 80s, the tsunami, and then more civil unrest that followed, including an internal conflict. But the industry survived, and I'm sure it will survive again, and it will do better. We need to get on the social media. We need to publicize what we have a lot more, attract the younger crowd, attract the middle classes. And they will come here, and we can do much better, and we will be able to achieve the $5 billion target sooner than later. But it will require imaginative thinking, thinking out of the box, and getting out of the comfort zones that we are used to, where we publicize our beaches, our historical sites, our tea gardens, and then we sit back waiting for the tourists to come.
We are planning a delegation to promote Sri Lanka, and we would also like to invite Slide to Use to promote Sri Lanka maybe in a different way. Staying with the traditional pavilion, but also going into the halls of trekking, adventure tourism, of medical and wellness tourism, but also think about different formats. We have a show that is called Free in Munich, also a huge show with 180,000 visitors coming from all over the world, 1,000 journalists coming from all over the world, but really focusing on future areas. Yeah, there's a lot of young visitors coming to this show Free for topics of adventure, ecological tourism, nature tourism, and I think this is something that we should encourage. Also, marina or beach tourism, maritime tourism can be more focused in shows like Boat. We have accompanied in January still, before COVID-19, a Sri Lankan delegation to the boat show in Düsseldorf, which has their own 2 halls promoting marina tourism.
Through our collective efforts, I will look at taking a few initiatives to push our industry to be more sustainable. Through industry-wide action to reduce single-use plastic, such as plastic bottles, as well as reducing tourism's impact on our wildlife, national parks, coral reefs, and our environment in general. For this, we will look at supporting the work Slido has done in this regard, as well as engaging with suppliers, communities, and other organizations working on projects with realistic outcomes. In addition, another goal of ours will be to increase the digital presence of Slido. We will look to use digital mediums such as social media, webinars, and blogs to educate and promote to our stakeholders the work of Slido, the importance of travel agents, new trends in tourism, and the many possibilities for tourism in Sri Lanka by highlighting niche activities, off the beaten track locations, and new experiences.
The number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients to have been discharged from hospitals currently stands at 1,446. The number of patients undergoing further hospitalized treatment stands at 491. Today, one COVID-19 positive patient was reported in the country. According to the report issued by the Epidemiology Unit as at 10 a.m. today, within the past 24 hours, 25 patients were discharged from the respective hospitals upon full recovery. Thereby, out of the total number of 1,948 COVID-19 cases reported in the island, the number of fully recovered patients stands at 1,446 as of today. This accounts for 74.22%. Patients undergoing further hospitalized treatment accounts for 25.20%. 11 COVID-19 deaths have been reported in the island, and this is a percentage of 0.56. Yesterday, 23 COVID-19 infected patients were detected in the country, out of which 19 were returnees from Dubai, 2 were returnees from Qatar, and 2 were returnees from Britain and Russia. A group of 99 migrant Sri Lankans who were stranded in Australia due to the coronavirus spread returned to the island early this morning. The returnees were subject to PCR testing at the airport itself, and steps have been taken to accommodate them at several hotels situated around the airport until the test results are received. 3 expatriate Sri Lankans who were stranded in Japan returned to the island this morning. The returnees were subjected to PCR testing at the airport itself, and steps have been taken to accommodate them at several hotels situated around the airport until the test results are received. Meanwhile, cinema halls that remained closed due to the spread of the coronavirus are set to be reopened from the 27th of this month. Director of the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital, consultant Dr. G. Vijay Surya requests the public to limit arriving at the hospital from the distant locations. Stay tuned for foreign news.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at foreign news. In India, the elections for 24 Rajya Sabha seats were held today amidst the threat of the coronavirus. Elections were held according to strict health regulations. The Congress party won 2 of 3 Rajya Sabha seats up for voting in Rajasthan, while the BJP won the 3rd in the biennial election held today. The score was flipped in Madhya Pradesh, where the ruling BJP won 2 and Congress won. The outcome of the closely watched contest in Gujarat is still awaited. The build-up to the elections, in which 24 seats from 10 states were at stake, was marked by a resurgence of resort politics, resignations, switching sides and allegations of bribery. The Election Commission made elaborate arrangements for the voting in view of the pandemic. Every voter was screened for body temperature, and while sticking to safety measures like wearing face masks and maintaining social distancing. Legislators having a fever or showing other symptoms were kept in a separate waiting room.
And in other foreign news, South Korean President Moon Jae-in today accepted the resignation of the minister responsible for relations with North Korea as tensions with Pyongyang rise over the activities of defectors in the South and stalled diplomacy.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in accepted the resignation of the minister responsible for relations with North Korea on Friday, as tensions rise days after the North blew up a joint liaison office on its border with the South. South Korean Unification Minister Kim Yeon-chul, who oversees engagement with North Korea, had offered to step down on Wednesday, making himself accountable for worsening ties. Pyongyang has taken issue over defectors in the south, sending propaganda leaflets, food and medicine via balloons and bottles thrown into the sea over the border into North Korea. The defectors have been asked to abandon their campaign, and the Foreign Ministry has threatened to impose penalties for violations of a law governing inter-Korean exchanges. North Korea has rejected offers from the South for dialogue amid stalled diplomacy. Direct criticism of South Korea from Pyongyang's leadership has slowed in the past 2 days, but state media has continued to deliver a flurry of reports of North Koreans, quote, exploding with anger at the South. Meanwhile, in the US, a senior Pentagon official said on Thursday, North Korea continues to pose an extraordinary threat to the Asia-Pacific region, and said it was difficult to tell what they would do in the coming days and weeks. It marks a further blow to President Donald Trump's hopes of persuading North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons and open up to the world.
US Senator Amy Klobuchar effectively pulled herself from Joe Biden's search for a running mate yesterday, saying the position should go to a woman of color instead.
U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar effectively pulled herself out from Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's search for a running mate on Thursday, saying the position should go to a woman of color instead. In an interview on MSNBC, Klobuchar cited the historic moment, saying, quote, "If you want to heal this nation right now, this is sure hell of a way to do it." Biden, who will take on Republican President Donald Trump in November, is under pressure to pick a black running mate as racial tensions have flared over the death of a black man named George Floyd in Minneapolis. Klobuchar has come under increased scrutiny as the former top prosecutor for the Minnesota County, which includes Minneapolis. Some Democrats have taken issue with her record on police misconduct and other prosecutions. Klobuchar competed against Biden for the Democratic nomination before dropping out and endorsing him in March. Biden has already promised to pick a woman as his running mate, and several black candidates are on his shortlist, including Senator Kamala Harris and Representative Val Demings. Some African American leaders and activists say having a black woman on the ticket would demonstrate that Biden is committed to addressing issues like criminal justice reform and police misconduct. Black voters make up a crucial component of the Democratic base.
A quick look at sports news now. President of the Sri Lanka Football Association, Anura De Silva, says training activity of the Sri Lanka football squad will commence on Monday. Players of the national squad are set to take part in a number of international matches in October. With the spread of the coronavirus, training activities of the national football team were temporarily suspended. At a media briefing held yesterday, it was officially announced that training would recommence on Monday at the Badagana Stadium in Kotte, at which 21 players will be included in the resident training camp.
The Special Investigations Unit of the Sports Ministry has launched an inquiry into match-fixing allegations made by former Sports Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage with regard to the 2011 Cricket World Cup final. Sports Ministry Secretary said that Sports Minister Dalla Salha-Perme had called for an impartial and transparent investigation under Section 16 of the Prevention of Offences Related to Sports Act passed in 2019. Former Minister Mahindananda recently made a controversial statement claiming that he does not accept Sri Lanka's defeat in the 2011 World Cup final as a defeat. According to the information I have received, I believe that it was match-fixing, he had said further, speaking on his startling revelation. On April 2, 2011, India beat Sri Lanka by 6 wickets to win the ICC World Cup final at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. During a televised interview recently, Alutgamage claimed that the final was fixed. However, he said he was ready to take full responsibility for his comments. Alutgamage had stated that the selection committee of Sri Lanka cricket had picked the squad of the World Cup final against India and that the team was changed in the last moment.